what is something you struggle with or find tough?
What is it? Something. I think so. I didn't realize this until I think last year. Someone asked me. They were like, "Do you think you've got ADHD?" And I went, "No." They were like, "Are you sure?" And I went, "No, I don't. I have literally no idea what you're on about." And so I went down that whole rabbit hole and went and got diagnosed. And they were like, "Yeah, you do." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that kind of explains my entire life." And so one of the things that I've really realized in learning this is that one, I have mega shiny object syndrome. I'm like, "Oh, look at that. That seems really good. Like, I want that. I want to do that." And so this is why
Yeah.
I have like 9 side projects on the go at the same time. Uh, and the hardest part about sticking to one thing is as soon as something feels like work or I have to do it, I don't want to do it anymore. I go, nah, it's like someone's telling me to do it. So trying to then be consistent with anything is then hard. But what I
Yeah.
realized is the best way to do it is to just not feel like you have to do it. You have to do it because you want to do it. So it's like trying to change the mindset. And so some weeks I'll miss a week because I've got, life in the way. And I have to
Mm.
go like, okay, instead of beating myself up and saying, God, you need to do this regardless, you have to be a bit easier and go, look, it's okay, it's not a problem. Make sure, and just try and make it a bit more like you want to do it. And so that's the biggest challenge for me is trying to strike that balance between having to do something and wanting to do it and having to
Yeah.
manage myself in that way to make sure that I can continue to do and continue to want to do these things. So that's my hardest thing that I struggle with.
There is an unbelievable parallel between me and you there on that. And weirdly, 10Q interview is my thing. That I'm a shiny object syndrome as well, and I'm also I'm both things you just said. And 10Q interview, I said to myself, I am going to carry on doing this, hell or high water. I am going to do it, and that's not forcing myself to do it necessarily. It's just like, do not quit. Because I started
Yeah.
this project. You may or may not know this. I don't know, but I started this project in 2012, and back
Wow.
then it was before podcasting. It was before YouTube. Well, it was before that sort of as it is now. And I did some like I don't know 10 interviews with people, and it was all text based, like blog posts.
Yeah.
And I had some like I say big names. I said like Hollyoaks actress, um, a US actor, the guy who wrote The Inbetweeners,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and a few others. And I and it lasted I don't know like 10 interviews, and then I got to from 2012 to 2022, 23, and I was like, oh, I wonder where I would have been if I'd carried that on. And I have a few projects I look back on like that. And I think, I wonder where. And you think, would I be Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
And the first person I said that to laughed. They were like, "Oh, as if you're going to be Joe Rogan." I said, "Well, look at it a
Well,
different
yeah.
way, right? If you'd have had that consistency for 10 years,
Yeah.
like maybe not Joe Rogan, but you'd be somewhere, right?"
But yeah, 100%. And I think this is what
Yeah,
people don't realize the power of like, and it sounds all like, oh my God, it's fucking here we go. But the power of consistency is
oh, it's
huge.
powerful.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's the most the most frustrating thing about myself is that I think that if I could only be consistent at everything, that I just
Mm,
think, holy shit, where would I be? Because there are lots of things that I think that I'm doing that are hugely valuable, but focus and consistency, if I could nail those things, that it would just be amazing. Like the growth, like even
yeah,
on the like they said on the cheese app side of things, that's been just amberly, like it's just been organically growing. I haven't really pushed it, I haven't really done anything. I'm like, oh, I should probably do something with that. And it grew like consistently over the last couple of years. And then I thought, you know what? If I'm actually just consistent with whatever the goal is, and that so I was like, okay, so I got a whiteboard in my office and I like started whiteboarding and saying, what are my long-term goals? How am I like what should I look at and how can I be consistent every day in something small to have an impact
yeah,
on that? And so I just tried breaking things down like that. So I was like, you know, I need to be better at this consistency because like you said, if you just do this stuff, like the
yeah,
power of that builds up. And especially on YouTube, on podcasts, you never know when an episode or something is going to pick up, and everyone goes, "Holy shit!" Like, the growth has been crazy, and you see it all the time. Like I see like YouTube channels just being like this, and it's steady growth, but it hockey sticks at the end,
Yeah.
and it's often not one of their latest things that's caused it. And there's so you never quite know the power of the things that you've done previously and how that's going to impact your future growth. And so I think
Mm.
that there's so much to be said for just and you don't have to beat yourself up about it. The consistency can be small things as long as you're doing something every day to work on whatever that goal is. Like
Yeah.
that mounts up massively over time.
The compounding impact is huge, isn't it? Like that
Yeah, but you don't see
cliche
it
of
for
the one the
ages.
1% a day. Um, yeah, you don't, and that's the problem. We're all adverse to delayed gratification, right? We want that instant Amazon
Yeah,
Prime
and
order, and
society
yeah,
pushes into that, especially with the things like we don't like it, we scroll past, and being able to have that instant gratification, then it makes it that much more difficult to stay in there for the long term. So I think that you just have to realize it doesn't matter what it is. Like I'm halfway through reading Atomic Habits as well, and it's a big one there. It's all about that, right? It's the compound effect of the 1%
yeah,
increase every day, and it doesn't matter if it's fitness, your job, whatever. You don't see the results for some time, but you have to just
no,
trust that it's having an impact. And even especially when like building products and stuff like that, sometimes it can feel like you're getting nowhere or you're not getting anything. But the lessons learned in that make it so much. I don't mind folding a project. So if I build something, I go, "This was a shit idea. I don't mind. Get rid of it." I
yeah,
learned so much in doing that that I can then spin something up like 10 times faster. Like nowadays, if I've got an idea, I can get it like mocked up or anything in like a tenth of the time that I originally could. So my
yeah,
cycles have become shorter. So everything that you do has an impact. You just don't necessarily know where that's going to play. And that's the same with making videos. You probably don't notice your own difference in what you're doing or how you're doing it, but it
mm.
is getting better, or you are improving, or you are trying. It has an impact. It's just we don't necessarily see it, and that's the hardest part to just plowing on and getting on with it.
It is. It's just a shame you can't bottle that information, and you could tell people that all day long, but they don't seem to twig it. And I'm equally as guilty. I'm not sitting here on my high horse going, "Well,
Yeah.
you should realize that." Yeah, consistency it's immense, isn't it?
and it and it's trying to. The hardest thing I find about then consistency is it's when you want. I don't want to stop doing lots of things. I don't think it would be physically possible. So it's then going,
Mm,
okay, how can I keep being consistent in small ways on the things that matter at the time? And so I think that's the hardest balance is trying to really work out what that consistency looks like. It doesn't mean you have to put eight
yeah,
hours a day in on each thing. It doesn't mean you need to work till 3 in the morning, because I used to do that and it didn't have an impact. Like it didn't have the same level as impact of like if you just did one small thing a day. So it's like, okay, what is that one thing? So that's the
yeah.
hardest thing to work out is that it's like priority versus impact. Like what's the priority, but what's the impact of it? And trying to really work out if you're going to do one thing today, make sure it's the most impactful thing, and it could take 10 minutes, but what's the impact
D-
of it? How do you work that out? So it's like trying to break down everything. Like my to-do list, I always try and look at it and go, there are loads of things that I'm probably going to avoid, but what's the impact of me not doing this, or what's the impact of me doing it? So I try and at
Yeah.
least balance out the impact of the things I'm doing to be able to prioritize it.
Let me ask you a provocative question then. So your
Yeah.
9 projects or whatever you said you're working on, if you binned off 8 of them and went solely focused on one of them, whichever one it was, would it get to a bigger, better place quicker, or would it get there full stop? I guess is probably a better question.
Yeah, I always kind of have this existential crisis as I'm lying in bed crying to myself. No, no, I do. I often think about this, but I honestly don't know. I don't know whether I could physically do it, but I don't know whether the extra time would help me push in the right place. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I honestly don't know. Um, I don't know whether I'd utilize that in the best way. I feel like I'm like multi-threaded, so I don't feel like
I
if I put all of those into one, it would help exponentially more in that way than it would not. But I honestly don't know. Like, yeah,
no,
it's
and
it's
I,
an
and I
interesting one.
wasn't I wasn't asking to challenge because I'm the same as you. I have multiple projects going on, and someone said the same thing to me. Like, why don't you just like focus on one, which is the conventional wisdom, right? It's like
Yeah,
focus on one solely, and I see the upside to it. I do,
yeah,
but
100%.
then the rebellious person in me who doesn't like doing what they're told kind of wants to push back on it and go, do you know what? I kind of enjoy doing this and this and this and this and this, and
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I
They maybe
completely
if I
agree.
yeah, and like maybe if I did one, then it would be like a multi-million project, whatever. But I don't know. You kind of got to do what you like, right?
Yeah, and that also comes to the whole thing of, for me, I wouldn't. I spoke about retirement right at the beginning, and retirement for me isn't not doing anything. I would continue doing the same things I'm doing now. I
Mm.
love building products. I love doing these things. I wouldn't stop doing that. It's just being able to afford to do it with more freedom. And so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the difference for me. And I think that when I think about all these different things, you have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to enjoy the process. Like, for years, I spent seeking out happiness. Like, happiness for me was this. If I just got this one thing, if I was really career focused, so I was like, I must get this job title. That will make me happy. I must earn this amount of
yeah,
money. That will make me
yeah,
happy. I must get this thing, and it never
yeah,
did. And I wasn't happy. And the problem with that is I probably lost, like, 5 years to that, to not realizing what I had. And so that whole part and what I learned along the way and that journey, it was missed out. And so now it's like I could focus on that one thing, but I love what I do. I love the whole journey of it, like every single
yeah,
day. I love being able to dip into different verticals, different sectors. I enjoy it so much. And so I get the same fulfillment out of it if I just went into that one thing and forced myself to do it? Probably not, because I'd feel that that was the pressure on this one thing to do something, and I just don't think I'd enjoy that in the same way. So my enjoyment and my fulfillment is my biggest priority, and that, whether that yields something along the way, that's perfect. I'd rather have it that way than be miserable and have some level of success higher than I have now.